Your kids may not be ready when school starts again. Hey, I'm Greg Johnston, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you know the approach. I take my expertise as an occupational therapist and I apply it to your child, and the ultimate goal is to help them to develop skills for life beyond this point right now, moving all the way into adulthood. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is something that's been discussed in my house a lot, because I have children who are preparing to go back to school. And of course, I'm keeping up with the news with COVID-19 and all those things. One of the things that became very clear to me is that when school starts back, whatever form it is in, there are going to be kids who are just not ready for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you an approach that I've taken, that I've applied to a lot of the, probably at least 50% or more of the students that I work with in school systems. They're referred for occupational therapy because they have some difficulty with handwriting. It could be that they don't know how to do any of it at all. They don't have recognition of letters even, or it could be that they just need it to be refined. But more than 50% of the students that I've worked with in the school systems that I've been involved in, I would say this approach is going to work with them. So if you're a parent getting your child ready for school, if you are a therapist who may be new to school system work, or you're just looking for kind of a fresh approach, even if you're a teacher, these ideas may apply to you. And what I'm going to show you is just kind of a very simple system that I've started using with my students. It helps with my preparation, it helps with consistency, and it hits a lot of the main things that my students are working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my camera that's on my desk, and I'm going to show you kind of the progression of my session development. Like I said, this is not for every student, but for more than 50% of the students who were referred for OT, students particularly who have issues with handwriting and other visual motor skills, here's an approach that I think can help you with many of your sessions, and it can be repeated, it can be modified, it can be upgraded, it can be downgraded. And so what I've done is, this is sort of my rough draft where I've kind of written all this stuff out, and then I've got kind of one that I've mocked, sort of worked through it, and then on the back side, just one that I've printed up. So I'm going to start with just the handwritten version because it has more information on it. But as you can look at that, and some of it you probably can read and some of it you can't. But basically what I'm doing is I have basic things that I want my students to work on pretty much every day, not just on the therapy days, but every day. So if they could follow this routine, they're going to get a lot of the support that they need. So what am I doing? The categories that I've written are my name, my number, my color, my shape, my exercise, my new challenge, and my fun choice. So what we want to do is we want to have our students practice as much as possible these basic things where they are working on writing their name, they're working on letter and number recognition and production, identifying colors, matching colors, working on shapes, particularly like with design copying, because those things are foundational for writing. And then the other things that I've applied are, having an exercise to do, having a new challenge, and having a fun choice. So let's talk a little bit about those last three things: the exercise, the new challenge, and the fun choice. Okay, so when we're working on getting a student to be able to perform various activities, whether it be handwriting or cutting something out, some craft activity, there are physical skills that will help them to be more successful. Not to beat a dead horse, but on earlier videos I talk about getting your kids on the ground so that they can develop some core strength, the trunk, the back, the the shoulders, the hips. Getting down on the ground helps with those things. One of the things it does is it makes a more stable base for using your hands. If your shoulders are not strong and your hands trying to do something out in space, there's going to be less accuracy and less precision. So if you can strengthen the shoulders, for instance, you're going to just have a better foundation for using the hands. So I change the activities regularly for each session, but I want to have my session where my student practices some form of writing their name, writing a number, identifying or coloring, and practicing a shape. But I also want to make sure that I use a part of my session to give them a physical exercise. So it may be doing wall push-ups, or it may be doing a floor puzzle because they are getting on their weight bearing on the ground on their hands and knees. It may be some coordinated activity like jumping jacks or something like that. Then the next thing on that list is the new challenge, or what I really normally refer to it as is a new motor challenge. And what I want to do is try to give my students something that they are unlikely to have ever been challenged to do before. So it might be, something like walking along a balance beam that's like just like a 2x4 across the floor or something. Walking along that and picking up coins on each side. So they may have picked up coins and they may have walked along a balance beam, but they may not have done those two things together. So giving them a new motor challenge helps them to develop some new skills that will then become part of their toolkit for being able to perform a lot of skills. And then the last thing that's on my list is the fun choice. I want to talk about that from the standpoint of motivation. So a lot of therapists, and I'm not knocking them. I just want to emphasize that this is kind of what happens. So a lot of therapists, they want to provide rewards for students at the end of the session. So they will give kids, a piece of candy or something like that, or someone might have like a little grab bag of little toys. So maybe they don't get some every time, but maybe after 2 or 3 sessions, or maybe some goal, they are able to get an item. I've used all these things. Stickers at the end of the session. I like to have stickers at the end of the session. I think it's in kind of an easy way. It's kind of a reinforcer, but it's not over the top thing. But better than stickers, in my opinion, is to give my students a little time at the end of a session, usually just a couple of minutes, where they get to pick their favorite choice of activities to do. And it's not any activity in the world, it's activities that I've set up for them or that I've given them options of. I might say, you want to do this, this, or this when you get done. That'll be your reward, because not only does it reinforce that they've done what they need to do, they have earned this privilege, they're getting it, and the bonus for me as a therapist is a therapeutic task and not just an extra, but it's so they get the satisfaction that they earned it, but it also gives them more practice. What I really like is whenever one of my new motor challenges that I've introduced gets on that list and they choose that activity, so it sort of reinforces it. So I don't want to spend a lot more time on this, but I do want to emphasize for you that all of these activities can be graded up or down depending on the student's activity skill level. So for instance, if you have writing a name at the beginning of the activity, but your child isn't really able to write their name, well, you might list 3 or 4 names in a category, and their job is to either mark through or circle a name that is there, so there's a recognition. So you just kind of build the activities depending on what the skill level of your student is. So let me go back to my other camera real quick just to kind of show you the way I've developed this. So all of those things are kind of explained in this. Here is here is, so there's the there's sort of the blueprint, kind of you know, a blank sheet of paper I developed just using a Word document. You notice at the bottom, if you're a therapist, I have a category down here that's just observations. So you actually could use something like this as a kind of a data collection sheet. You can, you know, report on how your child did with each thing, and then you can make a little note at the bottom as to where they are, what's the next thing. But let me show you this one. So this is, as you'll notice, this sheet of paper is smaller, which also creates its own little activity. You can have your student at the end cut out the activity if you wanted to just add something like that. But here's what I'm doing with this. So what I have over here on this side is I'm giving a cue. This is sort of the setup for my session. So these are the things that I've given to my student, and then they perform either they perform over here or we record over here. So I write, here's your name, and then they practice writing their name. And then over here on this side, you'll notice I have a colored in space, I have a plus, an X, and a check. Well, what I'm really emphasizing with this is that I want, after they finish each one, I want them to mark it. So they could color in the whole section. They could do that all the way down, or they could put a plus, or they could put an X or a check mark. But basically what you're thinking of is once they've completed this, then they indicate that they finished by doing this. Then they go to this, they indicate they finished by doing this, and so on, okay? And so you see down here where I have wall push-ups. We just wrote down that they did it, and then they will mark once they've done it. My new motor challenge, hop on 1 foot. The student has the opportunity to say hop or to write hop. And then fun choice. Obviously, in a school, you're probably not likely to choose this as riding a bike, but I think when you're in the summertime, when you are trying to prepare your child to get ready to go back to school, something like that is a great choice. You say, hey, let's work through these activities, and at the end, you can ride your bike. Now, my kids, they're older, but they're getting into BMX, and so they're doing, you know, more daring things. And so they're building ramps and jumping ramps. So if you were to create an activity where you said, all right, let's do these things, and at the end, you get to go jump your ramp or whatever, or, you know, anything. It could be anything. But I want you to take this and use this to help prepare your kids to be ready when the school doors open, or if you decide to keep them at home. Here's a great way to just have them do something that's therapeutic, because what you don't want is you don't want these things that are kind of foundational things to get in the way of your child's academic learning because they struggle with how they use their hands and those kinds of things. So I just want to encourage you, put this in front of your kids, or if you're a therapist, put that in your bag of tricks, and hopefully it'll work for you and make life a little more smooth. Something like that. Okay. All right. Y'all take care.